Good morning and welcome to this week's IGTV. I'm talking about why constantly asking your teenager about school, their grades, their assignments is backfiring and lowering motivation and confidence when that's what you're trying to increase in the first place. This is a hot topic. I just posted a TikTok about this and a reel or a video here on Instagram, which I will get over to my YouTube channel. And this is something that I think I could talk about until the end days. And I will talk about until the end days, until parents, and thank you, Jennifer. I'm so grateful. Well, I'm gonna dive into this a little bit more, Jennifer, today here. I've got a little more time, of course, on Instagram to unfold this for you. And if you haven't watched that video on Instagram or on TikTok, it's called Stop Asking About School. It is a reenactment of what your teenager is kind of going through when you ask about school. I'm going to tell you this from my personal experience. I grew up in that environment, okay? And I'm going to talk to you about it from my personal experience to give you a little more insight. And I'm going to deal with your biggest objection, which is, well, if I don't ask, then they're gonna fail. You should see the comments on the video I posted. Well, if I stop asking, then they're failing. Okay, well, we're gonna deal with that too. So buckle up, let's do this together. I am gonna be drinking my matcha latte this morning. I realize I forgot my earbuds. I'm tired, I didn't sleep that well, so please be patient with me. Thank you. My name is Allie Payne. I am a certified life coach, a certified relationship systems coach. I have been working primarily with parents of tweens and teens. That's anywhere from, say, 12 to 19 or 20, because the adolescent brain development goes on right in that phase, to help you end the painful disconnection, emotional blow-ups, stressful silences, yelling, nagging, and reminding, to create healthy relationships based on trust and respect where you feel calmer and more confident. Sound good? Okay. Let's do this. Hi. Okay, thanks for joining, everybody. I love that you're commenting. I love your interaction. It really helps me when I feel tired and I feel like I spend my day talking to my phone when you interact with me. So thank you so much. My brain is seriously tired today. Okay, so if you're on Instagram, hit the follow. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe. I would love that. Okay, so the purpose of my video yesterday, if you didn't watch it, no problem. I'm gonna break it down for you. What I did was a role play video in which I played both the teenager and the mom. I'm not saying it's just moms, I just played the mom. And a teenager coming in the door from school, and whether the mom is home or the dad is home, I work from home, so I would always be here when my kids came home. Whether you work outside the home, I have no judgment. Please don't make up a whole bunch of load of crap about the video that I did or did not mean, okay? And in the video, I was reenacting how when a teenager comes in the door, generally the first thing that a parent asks them is, how was school today? Or, how did your test go? How did that quiz go? How was your exam? Did you talk to your teacher about that class? Did you get that paperwork in? Did you talk to your counselor about changing that course? How was math? Like, I know you love your teenager. So that's assumption number one I'm choosing to hold. Hi, Brian. I am choosing to hold, I know you love your teen. Okay, so I'm not even going to question that. I'm not going to address it. I know you love your teen. I'm also going to make some pretty wild assumptions here to say that you were also raised in an environment where, yeah, you get it, right, Jennifer? You were probably raised in a performative environment, which was standard parenting of previous generations. I'm also not throwing shade on your parents, so let's move off that too. Okay, previous generations were not as equipped or knowledgeable about emotional intelligence, which now we have thankfully decades of research on. And so parenting was much more focused on performance and compliance. Okay, performance and compliance. Because it was conflated with morality. Okay. So if you performed well, you were simply like, you were morally better. If you had children who performed well in school, sports, etc., or were like really appropriate, well-behaved children, you were morally better, and so were your children. This is the thinking of previous generations that still lives on today through us. Yes. Thank you, Taylor. I knew you would. Having some caffeine. Okay. So if you're with me, give me a heck yeah. Does that sound familiar? Were you raised in an environment that was performative and compliance-based, where your parents were very invested in your schooling? And I will say, for their credit, that at the time in that previous generations in the world, an education was literally a ticket. Could be out of poverty, out of slavery, drudgery. It was the ticket to freedom. Mostly it was seen as financial freedom, but there was an emotional factor of, you didn't like have to be a factory worker, or you didn't have to be beat by your boss because he was allowed to beat you. You could be the boss. You could be the landowner, not the land worker. An education was the ticket out of a world of a life of oppression. Okay? So, yes, you were a latchkey kid. Okay, yes. And it was, so I just want to say performance, performance was, I just want to give your parents some credit for 1 sec. Okay. This is why your parents cared so much about your school. And I will also say, in previous generations, not ours, no, previous generations, good marks in school, which did actually get you into good post-secondary education, because you could get into a great program with like a B average generations ago, okay? It gave you, it also looked as favor on your family that you had children who were going to esteemed schools. So it was about social status as well, okay? It could get you invites and favor into certain places or things that you would not have done before. So it was a big deal. And getting a degree in previous generations, can't say that enough, getting a degree from a good school almost assured you a great job. Like, it almost assured you a great job. You might not go in as the owner, but you could go in as the mentee, right? And work your way into ownership more quickly, okay? When you had an education and a great, a degree from a good school, it literally assured you, if you played it right, if you had like any sense at all, it assured you success and freedom out of oppression, okay? Yes. Let us now turn the page and come to today, come to this generation. Okay, so first of all, I am a Gen Xer. I know I look so much younger. Anyway, I'm a Gen Xer, and I was raised by parents who were raised like that. Okay, so they were doing what they knew. All good. My generation, at least in Canada, Gen Xers, okay, because we were raised that we had to get good grades, because we had to get into good schools, but I was raised by a baby boomer. Here's where this went off the rails, okay? I was raised by a baby boomer. Baby boomers are the generation, at least in North America, somewhat in Europe as well, are the generation that are the wealthiest generation in history, and are the first generation who are not raising children who are financially surpassing them. They are raising children who are financially not close to them, because of lots of factors to do with the economy, etc. I'm not going to get into that total thing, okay? So I was raised by a baby boomer who, although they worked hard, and my parents certainly did not have a lot extra. They lived on one wage. It was a union worker wage. It was not like, it was blue collar, you know, not white, you know. So my family didn't have a whole lot extra. But because they were in the baby boomer generation, they financially managed better on the net earnings they made than this generation is, okay? So I was raised under the same thing. Go to school, you have to get good grades, you have to get a degree because then you'll get a good job. Except here's what happened in my generation as a Gen Xer. We are called, statistically, my generation is called the lied to generation. We were the lied to generation because we were lied to. Go to school, get good grades, go get a degree, and you'll get a job. You'll get a good job. You'll be successful. Except that we paid money to get a degree and graduated with more student debt than any previous generation and didn't get a job. A degree became like a welcome mat. It barely got you to the front door. And getting into a good school with grade inflation because of population inflation and this constant message that you had to get a good grade, that all, now you couldn't get into the good schools and the good programs unless you had like a 92% average. So much for like getting a solid B average. That didn't get you in anywhere. So we were called the lied to generation. And guess what? In Canada, Gen Xers like myself are the highest per capita demographic of entrepreneurs. We're the highest number of entrepreneurs in the country, and we outnumber our generation in the US. Because we all said, well, that was a big fat lie, screw you. So we all went into business for ourselves and did it our own way. Okay, so there's a little historic view of why this is so effed up. Now let's get into how your teenager feels. Okay, so I was also raised this way. I was constantly, now here's the thing, I've said this in videos before. My dad was incredibly intelligent. He skipped 3 grades, count those, 3 grades in high school. Could have graduated when he was 15. He has a photographic memory and he was incredibly intelligent. I think there's some neurodiversity in there, but that was not diagnosable really in that era. I got into school. I was the youngest. I'm the youngest of 2. So generally the younger child in a home picks up on a lot of the learning from the older one. I got into school and I thought everybody was like, I'm like, what? You can't read? You can't do that math? Like, what? So I was assessed and I was supposed to skip a grade, but my parents said, no, that socially I don't think is going to work. So instead I had advanced readers, advanced math books, so I could socially stay in the same crowd. It sucked. It was terrible. Anyway, my parents cared about grades. They cared about grades. Now, they didn't ask when I was a young child in elementary school because my poor teachers, because I was a ferocious learner and they couldn't keep up with me. So they put me in the split grades all the time as the younger kid and then gave me the older kids' work because they just couldn't keep up with me. Like I was finished all the tests. I was finished the work. I'm like, and I'm an extrovert, so I got bored fast and I'm loud. And I'm like, can we play now? Now can we play? I was a treat for teachers. So as a teen, my parents I think they thought this would continue, right? I also I've had it tested. I have a photographic memory and I got into high school and it didn't work really well. Because you see, a photographic memory will only get you so far if you don't know how to apply the knowledge. Now, my parents would always drive home how important grades were, right? It's pervasive. It's pervasive. This starts very early. And the shaming messages about other people's children who don't do so well. Have you noticed they ever said things like that? Pervasive messages about children who struggle in school and the morality of that child and the morality of those parents. Have you ever noticed that? I had those kids. I remember I grew up with them. They had more behavioral issues, some learning issues, and they were still cool people. But my parents were very morally judgmental about that because that's how they were raised. So when you are reinforcing, even subtly, you're reinforcing messages with your child about how important grades are, you are raising them in a performative environment. You are teaching them that external performance markers, such as grades, percentages. I was also, thank God for sports in school, because my parents probably would have had to like sell me. I don't know. I was just so busy. I had so much energy that I was in a lot of sports, and I was, athlete of the year, and I was the soccer player and all this and the hat tricks, and like I just loved to move. I was happiest when I was moving, and that gave me some place to put my energy, but it was another place for me to perform. So there was a good bad side. I was fulfilling my need to move and connect and be in like relationship with other people. My parents were using it as a way to fulfill their social status, because that's what they were taught. So I was helping my parents to take a moral high ground by being the gifted athletic kid. Thanks, I think. I don't even know how to respond to that. So when you get into high school, and all these years, okay, all these years of being very programmed to be performative. I brought home straight A's every report card. I didn't really have to work that hard in school. And I remember I got 1 B. Now, when I got home, when I brought home my A's, all of my A's, my report card was looked at like, meh. That's what I got for getting straight A's. Because I grew up in a home where perfection was the norm. That was just what was expected. So nothing was really commented on. But it was so pervasive. When I got a B one time, I got grounded. I got shamed and shunned because I got a B. Now, of course, to my dad, a B is... I don't think he understood a B. He skipped 3 grades. I'll say it again. Okay. Like I don't think he understood what that, how could somebody get a B? My mom is very intelligent too, just in different ways. Okay. So this performative environment was so pervasive that by the time I became a teenager, and by the way, because I grew up in a also very toxic, emotionally abusive home, because perfection was what was expected and it was the norm, and if I fell off of perfection, it was severe shaming, emotional abuse, name calling, punishment. It was abuse. I know that they were loving me and doing it the only way that they knew. It was abuse. And so when they were, and that was their idea of behavior modification, because that's what previous generations knew, was that shaming and guilting and coercion and manipulation, all of those things was behavior modification. So when I got a B, I got grounded and shamed. I remember my dad literally looked at the report card and was like he didn't even know how to process that there was a B on my report card. So here's what ended up happening. I struggled emotionally enormously. I was wildly insecure, as the teenage brain is, but I was also very insecure and anxious because of the environment that I lived in, where I didn't know when I was going to get hit, or like people were all calm and smiles, because compliance, remember, performance and compliance. Compliance was everything until my parents blew their lid, and then I would get hit and hurt out of nowhere. So, oh, excuse me. So my anxiety was already extremely high, and then you add that just out of safety. I had insecure and anxious attachment because I never felt loved. Honestly, I did not feel loved. I felt taken care of, like I had a house, Thank you. I felt taken care of. I had a house, there was food on the table, not a lot of food. We ate cheese on toast a lot of days because we didn't have a lot of extra money. My mom was an expert at making the paycheck last. It was simple. So as a teen, I'm insecure, I'm wildly anxious, and I feel unloved. Now, you're a teenager, and I know that you're treating your teenager differently. I get that, okay? I know that you're treating your teenager differently. Assumption. We're handled. Here's the issue. Your teen's brain doesn't always believe what you believe. Your teen's perception of you and your expression of love is not always what they receive. Your teen's perception of their value to you is not always as clear as what you would like it to be. And that is why when you focus on performance and compliance, they will quickly internalize that and make up a story that their only value to you is increasing your social status and your self-esteem and worth because they are a good child. And then we wonder why our teens come at us like out of nowhere, like an angry caged animal, or shut down and shut you out like locked bars, throw away the key. This is why. So my parents only ever asked about my tests. They only ever asked about my scores in school. They only ever asked about my sports. And did we win? Did I score? I was an award-winning athlete in my high school. Actually, the trophy is still in the trophy case. It's kind of weird. And academics for my school until I wasn't. And I started struggling in grade 10 because my photographic memory doesn't help you execute or apply the knowledge. And I started going off and I could feel it on my fingertips. Like when you're doing a fitness test and you're like hanging on, or maybe you're doing a chin up and you're like, I'm falling, or you're like hanging on by your fingernails and you're like, I can't hang on any longer. That's what I was doing in grade 10, but I was managing to keep the pieces taped together and on the picture so that nobody noticed it was all falling apart. And when I hit grade 11, what made it worse was I was put in academically advanced classes. Now, when my parents continued to ask about my grades, all I remember thinking is, you don't love me. You don't love me. Now, I'm going to be really frank here, so I'm sorry if swearing is offensive to you. I just want to keep this real, okay? I remember in my head, I remember sitting in my room and saying, like, you don't give a shit about me. You wouldn't care if I was dying on my bed as long as I got straight A's. Now, I will also add that, okay, but you need to let that go for 1 second. Your child learns to take responsibility and take school seriously by building their self-esteem and their confidence first. So I need you to stop treating your teenager like an employee, and I need you to stop trying to expect their adolescent brain to have adult level capacity to understand long-term perspective, perspective of short-term outcomes. They are 100% emotionally based. Okay, I'm not doing that to like make hand signals or something. Sorry, if you haven't seen my previous videos, this is the Dr. Daniel Siegel hand model of the brain. This is the amygdala right here, okay? The amygdala is your emotion center. This is a teen brain. It is hijacked by the amygdala. This is your prefrontal cortex and frontal lobes. This is your brakes, the brakes of the brain, the intellectual filter that creates responsibility, that creates intention, that does time prioritization, strategic planning, goal setting, okay? This is this. See that? Like it's not even formed. And that amygdala, oh honey, you're getting that every day, all day. This is a regulated adult brain, okay? Amygdala, ooh, nice and safe, okay? Filter, brakes, all intact. Teen brain, adult brain. You can look up the science if you like. I am not just talking out my ass here, okay? So I'm sorry if I'm being very blunt with you, but I deal with teenagers every single day who DM me. And if you want to read my DMs from teenagers who are literally sliding down the slope of anxiety, depression, overwhelm, self-harm, and unaliving because they feel unloved, unseen, and unheard because they're growing up in a compliance and performance-based environment, then you go ahead. But I'll tell you what, you want to read, I don't know, say 5 to 6 of those messages in one day, you will change your tune. And yes, I'm passionate about this. I am. Because I tried to take my life too, at 17. Because I had no value left. When I couldn't perform, because my mental health was sliding so far down a slope, I went from straight A's to F's and failing out and a suicide attempt. I had no value left to my parents. I was a shame to them. They were embarrassed. I was shameful. They were losing their social status because I wasn't performing. Now I was that child. And of course, everything was a secret back then. Like, we didn't talk about the shitty stuff, right? So, my parents only ever asked about my grades. When I didn't have good grades, I hid it. I hid my report cards from them. Now, this is pre-digital era. Yes, I'm older than Google. I am old. I used to hide my report cards when my grades were falling and I was failing. I used to hide my report cards in my backpack and I would give them to my parents the day after parent-teacher interviews so they would miss it. They couldn't go. I didn't go to a single Monday in grade 11 because I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know how to cope. Now, here's what I need you to let go of about this whole responsibility and just ask for help and take it seriously and accountability. Those are adult level concepts, adult brain concepts. The teen brain is emotionally run. I'm going to say it one more time. The teen brain is emotionally based. I identified with being a straight A student who teachers and other students came to ask for help. That was my identity. Now, all of a sudden, I'm the child who doesn't know how to do the work and I'm failing out and I am terrified to ask because at home, failing is shameful and embarrassing and weak. Asking for help is only for the stupid kids. And now you want to know why I wouldn't go ask for help? So when my parents were constantly asking me about my grades, how did that test go? It reinforced the message that I, as a person, had no value to them. They had no space for it, and they didn't give a flying F. Now, that's not true, okay? That's not true, nor is it probably true for you and your teen. But I am going to tell you for sure what your teen thinks. So, as per the video that I made and posted yesterday, which I will post on YouTube as well, I want you to stop asking about school. Because the more you ask about school, you actually lower your teen's confidence because you send the message to their brain that they are less loved by you when they don't perform. Okay? So now, the minute you do that, the second that you start focusing on performative outcomes with your teenager, they don't feel emotionally safe to tell you if they are struggling. Because you're saying, all I value is this, all I value is this. That's the outcome, my friend. That's the outcome. That is the outcome of a very long equation that starts down here. Starts down here with confidence, self-esteem, both of which the teen brain drastically struggles with because of their adolescent brain development, which I'm not going to go into in this video. Their self-esteem drops up to 30%. So their self-esteem is tanking from one side of the Grand Canyon. They got to go all the way down into the bottom through the Colorado River and all the way back up the other side before they have a sense of self-esteem again. And in that Grand Canyon, you are telling them inadvertently that all that matters to them, all that matters to you, is their grades. At a time when They need to know that you love them as a person, not as a performance, a person. When you constantly ask about school, it drives home failure. Your teenager feels unheard, unseen, misunderstood. And that is a dangerous time to start sending that message when they are walking through the Grand Canyon alone. That is a dangerous time, because what you're doing inadvertently is severing emotional safety, that thread that they need to know that they are safe with you. No, you don't make them go to school. School avoidance is anxiety-based. You deal with the anxiety. Deal with the anxiety first. So when you are driving home performance, you are driving them further down the Grand Canyon alone. What your teenager needs to know is that you love and appreciate who they are, and you don't value the number that shows up on their head every day based on someone else's standard of success, whether it is yours or your teachers. Because I got news for you. Half of the subjects in school are subjectively graded. Half of them. Subjective. And you could even go as far as to say as 3/4, because a lot of the math questions or the physics, science, I did all sciences, those questions, the part marks in there are based on, did you do the work the way that the teacher wanted you to do the work? So you're really putting value on your teenager based on the way that someone else says that they have value. And P.S., that number that the teacher's giving them is not a mark of their value as a human being. I know that's what we were taught, but we've got to move away from that. So rather than constantly asking about school or sports or performance, which, by the way, also my generation is now 80% in overwhelm and adrenal fatigue from constantly spending our lives trying to perform our way to prove our worth, and we are exhausted, sick, and tired. We don't need another generation to play that game, thank you. We've already tried it. It didn't work. Ask your teen. Or don't ask them. When your teenager comes home from school, do you want to know how overwhelmed they are? They are wildly overstimulated from trying to process a day of information, social insecurity, their own insecurity. And now you're asking them, how was school? How did it go? What did your teacher say? What happened? Please stop. Just welcome them home, as I did in the video, and say something like, hey, John, good to see you. Or, hey, Kyle, welcome home. That's it. Don't ask a question. And instead of asking your teenager, if my parents had said to me once, all I wanted my parents to ask me was, hey, are you okay? What is it like to be you right now? I would have told them. What is it like to be you right now? Do you know that teenagers are more overwhelmed, depressed, and anxious than any other generation as a demographic? And that there was a state of emergency declared for youth on November 7th last year because of the drastic increase in calls to distress centers and unaliving and self-harm and overdoses? Like, at what point are we going to start taking this seriously? What do you want more? To stand with your teenager getting a graduation certificate with a shell of a teenager, or I'm sorry to be really harsh, you just don't get it because you don't have a teenager? Fortunately, I wasn't successful in taking my life. Or do you want your teenager to be healthy and successful as they deem success? And at some point, you have a relationship with them to celebrate if they get a GED. You pick, and I will not play lightly with that. Ask your teenager, how did you feel about your school? How did you feel about school today? If you have to ask about school. If they had a test or they had an exam, how did you feel the test went? Stop asking for a number or a letter, for Pete's sakes. How do you feel it went? How do you feel about the test? If they say Yeah, it went pretty well. You're like, great. What did you like, or what went well about it? What would you do differently next time? That was the one thing that we always asked my son about his sport events. No matter if he won or he lost or he scored, or doesn't matter. We would always say, what went well? What's one thing that went well about that game? What's one thing you would change? And then that was it. Didn't matter if he won or lost. Who freaking cares? I think we need to get over the fact that we might be the most insecure generation raised, because we were raised so performative and compliance-based that we don't know how to have our own sense of self-worth and self-esteem if our teenager is not performing. And I'm going to say this again. Your teenager's job is not to fulfill your lack of self-worth or self-esteem. You do you, and go do your work. That is, your teenager's job is not to try and manage their own emotions and yours on top of it. Nobody can carry two people's emotions. So please stop. When you're asking your teen about their test, don't do it after school. Never, ever, ever do it after school. Just welcome them home. They're overstimulated. Let it go. Okay? If you ask them, and don't assume if they come home grumpy, can we please stop assuming if you come home grumpy that they obviously, oh my gosh, they failed. They must have failed. That's it. It probably went badly. Oh crap. No, they just might have had a bad day. How do you get people on board around you? Start showing them videos. Start modeling it. And see how your teen responds to you relative to how your teen's responding to them. You can't make anybody change. You can't make your teenager change, so you do you. It only takes one. You do you. Just start. Just start. If you're going to ask your teenager about an exam or a test, I want you to ask them how they feel about it. And don't do it at least until dinner. Leave it till dinner, okay? Then I want you to ask them, and I want you to acknowledge effort. Always acknowledge effort. 5 minutes of effort is better than no effort. Now, I always want you to acknowledge effort over performance. Effort over, why? It's not because we're raising snowflakes who don't take responsibility and don't understand accountability. No, it's because when you acknowledge effort, you are empowering your teenager to understand that they have agency over the outcomes in their lives. They have control over the outcomes, whatever they choose that to be. So acknowledge effort over the outcome. That's why that's so important. Hey, I saw you studying tonight about that, like, good for you. Doesn't matter if they have D's. I saw you opening your books and I saw you doing that. I know prioritizing stuff you don't like really sucks. So good job. Build their self-esteem and self-confidence, and they will motivate themselves, because you cannot, I'm going to say it one more time, you cannot motivate your teen, so stop trying. When you build their self-esteem and self-confidence, they have their own, motivation is an inside job. They will build their own sense of motivation, and they will try harder and try better. Here's why. Because when they try and fail, because we all do, just because how many exams that you tried really hard at and you had a couple that you bombed? At least. Because you thought, like, no, I totally studied or whatever, and then for whatever reason, what you studied was not on the exam, or what you studied wasn't what you thought it was, or whatever. Like, I think, hello, we've all had that happen. Okay? So are you going to shit all over your teen because they didn't do well on the exam? Or are you going to acknowledge that they actually studied what they thought it was and be like, dude, that sucks, but man, I really admire how much you studied for that. I'm so sorry that it wasn't what was on the exam. The fact that you made the time and you made the effort to study is what matters more. That builds their self-esteem and their self-confidence. It also builds emotional safety. So if they're struggling, they're more likely to come and tell you. If they need help, they're more likely to come and tell you. Okay? You cannot encourage your teenager to do more than the minimum, because you are determining what successful effort looks like. That is you imposing your standard on them. If they have decided that doing the minimum is the effort that they are satisfied with that outcome, so be it. They'll get what they get or they don't get what they get. But you are trying to overlay your expectation of effort and determine and judge what their best is relative to how you would do it. No, my friend, that's an expectation. An expectation is me projecting my values, beliefs, and opinions and how I want to experience an outcome on you. So you need to be, do, or say the way that I need you to create the outcome I want so that I feel good about it. No. If your teenager does the bare minimum, you acknowledge that you think they're really, just start affirming and being like, dude, you are so smart. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with your passion? Yes, this will be posted to my Instagram immediately when I'm finished, as well as on my YouTube channel. What do you want your teenager to believe in themselves, or do you want them to constantly feel like they're failing you? Because if you constantly are projecting a message that's saying, well, you're putting in the minimum. Well, you're just putting in the minimum. I mean, if you actually tried, I can't even imagine. Lowering confidence, lowering self-esteem. There is no gray area on this. But if you said to your teen, you know what? You're super smart. I think you're actually really talented and really smart. What do you want to do with that? What is a place you want to, what's a place something you feel passionate about where you want to put that skill and that natural talent that you have? It doesn't matter if it's not academic. Maybe they go into a trade. Maybe they go, like, there's so many other job opportunities that we didn't have when we were young that they have now. But when I say it that way to my teen, I'm building confidence and self-esteem. I am building connection, trust, and respect, because I'm saying, I believe in you. I believe you're more than that. But the moment you say those words to your teen, you know, you're so much better than this. Oh, save your condescension. I'm sorry, ain't got space for that. Okay? I know I'm being really harsh and direct here. I'm sorry, I'm tired, and my political correctness meter is really low this morning. I can't get any more DMs from teenagers on the other side of this and fluff this up and make it sound nice. I just can't. Okay? Let go of trying to teach your teenager's brain adult level concepts. They will learn those on their own as their brain develops, while you acknowledge effort and build their self-esteem and their confidence and let them know they are safe with you, because when they are safe with you, they will be safe to try even if they fail. If they feel safe enough to try because they have the confidence and self-esteem, they will likely increase their effort because they feel safe and they have confidence and self-esteem. Is the math working? Okay? Now, for the parents who say, well, but I'm paying for school. I'm paying for it, so I'm not paying for it if they don't put in the effort. Why would you pay for something that your teenager doesn't want to do? Why? Why would you send your child to college or university when they are showing you that they are emotionally struggling and not ready for whatever reason to be there? Because isn't that exactly what I'm talking about? Aren't you living out of morality based on performance that your child goes to college or university? Since when? Since when? Tell me where the moral meter is that says that your child needs to graduate and immediately go into college or university to get a good career, to get a job, blah, 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 blah. Tell me where the moral meter, I missed it. I must have missed the memo. Why are you sending your child to school to meet your expectations if emotionally they're not ready to be there? So why are you sitting on your child's head for them to meet your expectations of effort as you believe it should be, or perform in a way that makes you feel good and your social status and your self-esteem, so that they go away to college and don't have a friggin' clue who they are, how to feel, study habits, responsibility and accountability, those things that you were trying to hammer into them earlier, and then they fail out. Why would you do that? That's throwing your money down the drain and enforcing failure, like in a bigger way than you did before. Stop trying to send your teenager to college or university because you think it's the thing to do. It is not moral. So can we please just let that go? And can we start acknowledging that underperformance is emotional health? All behavior, 100% of it, is driven by emotions. And if your teenager is struggling and you choose to purely focus on the behavior and the performance and drive that home as if it's something moral that is meant to have you feel better about yourself, your teenager might be the one messaging me. Because if they are like I did, I went from straight A's to F's. I got grounded, I got punished. You're still taking away your kid's phone, you're taking away all their tech. I tried to take my life. I was so not okay. But nobody asked. I got punished further. I got grounded. I lost privileges. I didn't have a problem with performing in school. I was struggling emotionally with my mental health because I didn't believe a thing about myself because I was constantly told I was embarrassing and worthless and all the other things, fat, pig, slut, whore, all the things, whatever. I'm not going to get into it. Anyway, and all anybody cared about was my grades. Now I can tell you that story and you can be here on this live with me and you can be like, oh, Allie, I'm so sorry. Oh, how could someone have treated you that way? And I appreciate that. I really do. But it's all hot air unless you're willing to turn that around and put that perspective on your teen. Your teen isn't struggling to spite you. Oh, I am sorry, but this is not about you. Your teenager isn't struggling. They are struggling because they are struggling. So you're either going to be their ally or their critic, judge, and jury. And there's no gray area. Ally, critic, judge, and jury. We need to move away from performance-based parenting as if it's somehow conflated with morality. We need to start seeing our teenagers as people. Start acknowledging the science of their developing brain, that they are not adults. They do not have adult brains, and it is not your job to enforce adult level concepts as if somehow that's going to happen on your time. It will happen on their brain's time. When they feel confident, have self-esteem, feel emotionally safe with you, feel true belonging with you, and that they can have meaningful conversations. I hope this made some kind of sense today. I hope this made some kind of sense. And if I offended you, I do apologize. I know I'm being very, very direct. That my politically correct filter is really just, I didn't put it on today. And if you have questions or comments, please post them below this video. I will get this posted right here on Instagram. Hit the follow. If you're on YouTube, please hit the subscribe. There will be more. This absolutely applies to elementary school. Where do you think I learned the performative messages? In elementary school. They didn't just start in high school. The performative messages started very, very young. Very young. Because it wasn't about who I was. It was about what I could do. It was never about who I was. It was about how I excelled at everything. How proud they were of me because I made them look good. Oh, hell yes. It starts at 3, 4, 5 years old. Okay? And school refusal, by the way, is all part of this. And I've done a couple videos on school refusal. They're on my YouTube channel. They're also on, they're coming on my website and my blog. School refusal is part of this. It's not about you. Refusal is based on anxiety and fear. So you can either acknowledge and work with the anxiety or fear, or you can keep seeing this as a performance issue, that somehow your teenager's just like trying to fail out. And if this is something you would like help with, then please book a session with me. If you tap on my name via Instagram, if you tap on my name, then the link in my bio, all of my freebies, my programs, my online programs are all there. And I will teach you how to create emotional safety, true belonging, and meaningful conversations with your teenager so you can help build their self-esteem and confidence so they understand their own internal sense of motivation and feel empowered to go and express that in a way that is defining success as it's meaningful to them. All right, everyone, I'm going to go. I want to thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for your comments, for engaging, for participating. Thank you for tolerating my soapbox. I know that's not always charming for everybody. And I'm so glad you had a light bulb moment. I'm so glad. Awesome. All right, I will see you again next week here on Instagram at 11 a.m. Pacific. I'm on TikTok on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific time at Allie Payne on all the channels. See ya. Bye.